This morning, tensions between Iran and Israel escalated dramatically as Iran launched a large-scale missile and drone attack on multiple Israeli cities and military sites. The assault began late last night and continued into the early hours, shocking the entire Middle East. According to reports, Iran fired over 100 ballistic missiles and suicide drones targeting major urban centers like Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem, as well as strategic military facilities across Israel. This marks one of Iran's most significant and direct attacks on Israel to date, with analysts calling it a historic escalation in the long-standing hostility between the two nations. The Israeli military confirmed that its air defense systems managed to intercept several incoming projectiles, but not all of them. Some missiles reached their intended targets, causing explosions in multiple areas, particularly Tel Aviv. Widespread damage was reported, including building collapses, fires, and disruption of electricity supplies. Emergency sirens rang throughout the night, sending thousands of civilians scrambling for bomb shelters as the skies lit up with anti-aircraft fire and incoming missile trails. In immediate retaliation, the Israeli Air Force launched a series of strikes deep inside Iran. Key military sites in Tehran, Mashhad, Isfahan, and other locations were hit by Israeli warplanes and long-range missiles. Several of these strikes reportedly caused large fires and explosions, with emergency services struggling to respond amid chaos. Iranian state media acknowledged the attacks and claimed their air defense systems shot down many Israeli drones and missiles. However, they also confirmed that some facilities were damaged and several casualties had occurred. Iran stated that this operation was a direct response to prior Israeli actions, including the bombing of its consulate and the assassination of key Iranian scientists and military personnel. The Iranian government labeled today's attack as a defensive strike, warning Israel that any future aggression would be met with even greater force. Conversely, Israel declared that Iran had crossed a red line by attacking civilian areas and would face severe consequences. The Israeli Prime Minister, in a nationally televised address, stated that Israel would not back down and would respond with full military capability to ensure the safety of its people. The international community reacted with deep concern. The United Nations, the European Union, the United States, Russia, and China all urged both nations to exercise restraint and avoid full-scale war. The US reiterated its unwavering support for Israel, with the president calling the Iranian attack a reckless provocation and vowing to assist its ally in defense operations. Meanwhile, Russia and China urged diplomatic dialogue, warning that any further escalation could ignite a regional war with global consequences. On the ground, panic and uncertainty gripped both Israeli and Iranian populations. Schools, businesses, and public transportation were suspended in several cities. Hospitals switched to emergency protocols as casualties began arriving, and volunteers mobilized to support overwhelmed first responders. In Israel, shelters were filled with frightened families, while in Iran, sirens and explosions caused widespread fear and confusion in urban centers. Social media platforms were flooded with real-time videos, graphic images, and emotional messages from citizens on both sides. Hashtags related to the attack trended globally, and misinformation spread rapidly, prompting authorities to warn users to rely on official sources. Civil rights organizations called on both governments to avoid targeting civilians and adhere to international humanitarian laws. Military analysts expressed concern that the situation could rapidly spiral out of control. If the current conflict continues unchecked, other countries in the region, such as Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and possibly even Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, could be drawn in. There are fears that non-state actors like Hezbollah or pro-Iranian militias may also launch attacks, further complicating an already volatile scenario. Economic ramifications are already being felt worldwide. Crude oil prices surged amid fears of disruption in Middle Eastern oil supplies. Global stock markets showed signs of panic, particularly in Europe and the Middle East. Businesses with ties to the region braced for impact as trade routes and shipping operations faced potential closure. Financial experts warned that if war breaks out, the economic fallout could rival or even exceed that of previous conflicts in the region. The historical backdrop of the Iran-Israel conflict adds further gravity to the current escalation. For years, both nations have accused each other of destabilizing the region through covert operations, proxy warfare, and cyber attacks. However, today's open military exchange represents a sharp shift from indirect confrontations to direct warfare. Some observers suggest that Iran's decision to strike may have been influenced by internal political pressures or an attempt to send a message of strength ahead of upcoming regional summits. In the midst of this geopolitical drama, the real victims are the ordinary citizens. Children, elderly people, and families huddled in shelters, uncertain of what the next hour may bring. Humanitarian organizations stress that both countries must prioritize civilian safety and avoid further escalation. Appeals for ceasefires and humanitarian corridors are already being made by several global NGOs and relief agencies. At this moment, the situation remains highly volatile. Both Iran and Israel have signaled readiness for continued military operations. With each passing hour, the risk of a full-blown war grows and the world watches nervously. Diplomats and world leaders are scrambling to diffuse tensions and initiate dialogue, but time is running out. The current trajectory leads to deeper conflict unless a breakthrough is achieved soon. In war, there are no winners, only devastation, grief, and loss. The world hopes that reason will prevail over revenge and that diplomacy will take the place of destruction. Whether Iran and Israel will heed that call in time remains to be seen.